Help me reach 1,000 subscribers. I never imagined that a single rain-soaked night could unravel my entire life. If I had known, I would have made different choices. But hindsight offers no mercy. My name is Emily. I'm 33 years old, living in a quiet town in Ohio with my husband, Daniel. We had been married for 8 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it felt stable, reliable, even. Or at least that's what I told myself. I didn't understand how easily something that feels solid can shatter. Daniel worked as a paramedic, often pulling long, exhausting shifts. He was the kind of man who ran toward danger when others stepped back. I admired his courage, even though his job meant countless lonely evenings for me. I worked as an assistant at a small company where my boss, Andrew, stood out effortlessly. He was confident, composed, and engaging, the sort of person people naturally listen to. At first, I never viewed Andrew as anything more than a boss. But as weeks turned into months, loneliness began to settle into my marriage. Daniel and I barely crossed paths. When he was home, he was drained. Conversations faded into silence, and more often than not, he fell asleep before we could truly talk. Slowly, painfully, I started to feel invisible. And when someone feels unseen, even the smallest bit of attention can feel overwhelming. Then came the call that changed everything. Daniel had been injured while responding to an emergency and was being taken to the hospital. My heart seized. I rushed there, terrified of what I might find. He was awake when I arrived, bruised, sore, hooked up to machines, but alive. He tried to reassure me, saying the doctors only wanted to run tests and that he'd be fine. Visiting hours were ending, and despite my protests, he insisted I go home and rest. Before leaving, I kissed his forehead and promised to return early the next morning. He smiled weakly and told me he loved me. At home, the silence felt heavier than ever. I sat alone on the couch, my thoughts spiraling. Then my phone buzzed. It was Andrew. I heard what happened, he wrote. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I should have thanked him and stopped there. I should have put the phone down. Instead, I kept replying. Maybe I was frightened. Maybe I simply didn't want to be alone that night. Andrew offered to bring food and keep me company. I hesitated, then said yes. That single word set everything in motion. When he arrived, his concern felt sincere. We ate together, talked, and for the first time that day I laughed. I told him how overwhelmed I felt, how lonely my marriage had become, how helpless I was with Daniel in the hospital. Andrew listened, really listened. And in that moment I felt noticed again. Too noticed. As the night wore on, the weather worsened. Rain poured down, thunder rattled the windows, and the wind howled outside. Andrew said it didn't feel safe to drive home and suggested waiting until the storm passed. I agreed. Another decision I would come to regret. We sat together talking for hours. Somewhere along the way, the boundary between comfort and intimacy faded. I didn't stop it. I didn't think clearly. I allowed myself to cross a line I can never erase. Guilt slammed into me the moment morning arrived. Andrew left quietly before the sun fully rose. I stood alone in the living room, staring at the wet footprints near the door, my stomach knotted with shame. I wanted to pretend the night never happened, but reality never allows that luxury. When I returned to the hospital later that morning, Daniel was sitting up in bed. He looked tired but hopeful when he saw me. He reached for my hand and I felt sick holding it. I checked the house camera, he said gently. My heart stopped. The storm triggered an alert, he continued. I saw him come over. I saw him leave at sunrise. I couldn't speak. My silence told him everything. Daniel closed his eyes, pain etched across his face. When he opened them again, tears filled his eyes, something I had rarely seen. I trusted you, he said quietly. Even when I was lying here, injured, I trusted you. I tried to explain, to justify my actions, but he shook his head. There's no explanation that fixes this, he said. I was scared and hurt in a hospital bed, and you chose someone else. I told him it was a mistake, that I was lonely and afraid. He raised his hand softly. Don't blame the situation, he said. You made a choice. Then he reached for a folder beside his bed. These are divorce papers, he said. My brother brought them this morning. My knees nearly gave out. I begged him to wait, to give me another chance. He looked away. I gave everything I had, he said. I don't have anything left. I left the hospital in tears, my world spinning. Andrew messaged me again later, asking if I was okay. I deleted the message without replying. That night, I sat alone at our kitchen table, staring at the empty chair where Daniel used to drink his coffee. The house felt hollow. Wrong. Daniel moved out 2 days later. There were no arguments, no shouting. He packed his things quietly and said only, Take care of yourself. His eyes were empty when he closed the door. People imagine affairs as explosive, dramatic, and full of passion. Mine wasn't. It was quiet, slow, built from loneliness and neglect. And like many quiet things, it destroyed far more than I ever expected. I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me. I don't know if we'll ever speak again. All I know is this: marriages don't break in one moment. They fracture in the small decisions you think don't matter. They break the night you stop choosing the person who chose you. And sometimes, you only understand what you've lost after the door closes behind you.